almost on the verge of drying out, but it's going to still be good, I believe. Here's yet another young flush of chicken of the woods. Have to blow the grass out. Try to harvest some. It's amazing how it grows right around the stalks of the grass, or chickweed in this case.
What do I say?
Why don't you tell them what we're doing? We're on a mission to what?
We're looking for a chicken of the woods mushroom that Dad saw a little while ago because we want to see if it's bigger now, and we just hope nobody else has found it before us.
That's right. Okay, let's go find it. So we're on this walk to find a chicken of the woods cluster that I spotted a few weeks ago, but I just spotted a different one. And it looks nice, perfectly fresh. Oh yeah, feels nice. Alright, so for those who are unfamiliar, this is chicken of the woods, this mushroom. It is a polypore that grows on trees, usually dead or dying trees. A lot of times you'll find it on really rotten stumps or fallen logs, but occasionally it'll grow on trees that are still alive. And this, let's see, no, maybe this tree doesn't have any leaves on it. Actually it does, on the very upper branches it still has some leaves on it, but it looks like it has a lot of dead branches too. Okay, for the first one, just so I can show you the underside and everything, I'm going to cut it off right back here by the tree. These mushrooms don't really have a true stem, but they do have a base where they grow out from the wood. You can see the bottom. It does not have gills. I don't know what the best lighting is here. It actually has really tiny pores that I guess maybe if you had really good eyes you could see them. I do not have good eyes, so I can't see them at all. It looks like just a plain yellow bottom. This variety here is commonly called Sulfur Shelf. You can kind of see the yellowy sulfur color. That's why it's called that. And it usually gets pretty orange on top. There are a number of varieties. This is probably the most common, at least in the eastern half of the United States, from what I understand. There's another one around here that's called Pale Chicken of the Woods. That's its common name. And I think that's the Cincinnatus variety. So this specimen is very young and fresh and tender still. Even back here at the base where I cut it, it's a little bit tougher, but it's not too bad. So we're going to be able to eat this whole piece, cut it up. But especially when you get larger, maybe a little bit older specimens, what you can do is kind of trim the outside edge to harvest some, and the mushroom will keep growing as long as you just leave that base intact and don't cut too deep into it. You can actually come back a few weeks later and harvest some more again. It'll just kind of heal around the edge and keep on growing. And if you want to kind of figure out how much of it is good and tender, just kind of go in with your knife from the edge, and you can feel it you can feel a resistance start where it starts to get tougher, and then just kind of cut around from that point. There's a bug coming out of there, but so that would have been the nice tender edge off of that piece, and that will probably keep on growing if I do that. I don't know that we're going to come back and get any more, so I'm probably going to take the majority of this actually. It's always really nice and tender around the edges. We can just kind of do that. Now I'm going to show you a little bit on how I like to cook this mushroom. There are a number of ways that you can cook it, a number of things you can do with it. The thing it's famous for is for kind of resembling chicken when you cook it up, and even when you break it apart, the texture inside, it's a little bit stringy, kind of like chicken meat, cooked chicken meat, and it can be used as a chicken substitute in a lot of dishes, in soup or pasta. My wife makes a wonderful chicken tikka masala. It's kind of an Indian dish, an Indian curry dish, and at times when we find this, she'll make it with that, and it is just fantastic. But there's another way that I found that I like to cook them that I'm gonna show you. Well, let me go ahead and harvest most of this. So check this out. I cut into it pretty deep into the base. It has all these bugs, these beetles in it, and they're in toward the base a lot. So that's another reason to kind of just harvest the outside if you want. It'll be less buggy if you don't want to spend the time getting them out of there, or if that freaks you out at all. If you just cut around and cut the outer edges, then you won't have that to deal with. Okay, so I've harvested everything I'm going to take from that cluster. We're going to go see if we can find that other spot. I've also noticed there's a few smaller ones growing up further that I can't reach, so I'm not going to bother with them, but it's pretty cool to see. Well, unfortunately, I'm not sure what happened, but I believe this is the chicken of the woods I came looking for. Looked like there was a little bit there and there. I don't know. It's like they just died before they really got a chance to fruit. I'm going to get a good look at this tree and check the footage of the last time I was here to make sure this was the same tree. And I will actually show you this footage right now so you can see what they looked like when they were just starting to grow fresh. Oh, this is pretty sweet. These are chicken of the woods mushrooms, just starting to pop out. So I'll need to remember this and come back here in a couple weeks, see how big they've gotten. So that's quite the bummer that they didn't flourish, but at least I was able to find that other flush to show you what they look like, and we'll take them home and show you one of the ways that I like to cook them. Okay, like I said, I'm going to show you one way that I like to prepare chicken of the woods. As I said, you can kind of use them as a chicken substitute in any dish that you would put chicken in. I don't know if you can see, as you kind of break them apart, it almost just reminds you of already cooked chicken. But this is a mushroom that you do need to cook, and make sure you cook it thoroughly. I should mention that some people don't do well with this mushroom. If you've never tried it and you're trying it for the first time, it's very good to try just a really small portion. The same goes with just about any wild mushroom, really. But try a small portion and just wait a day or so and make sure you don't have any ill effects. Some people, I knew a guy who was a big mushroom guy, really into wild mushrooms, but for some reason he just couldn't handle chicken of the woods. So the other thing is, they say that if you find it growing on conifers or cedars, eucalyptus, any kind of softwood tree, that you don't want to eat it. There's something that it soaks up the oils from the tree and then makes it harder to digest, for at least for certain people. So make sure it's growing on a good hardwood tree. And I even came across one guy that said that as you're cooking it, you can go by the smell. If it smells really good, then it's most likely going to be fine. But if it has kind of a foul smell to it, then it may have been growing on a tree that you don't want to eat it from. So anyway, some people do just cut these kind of into strips, like you would chicken tenders or something like that, and bread them and fry them up just like fried chicken. That's fine if you want to try that. But what I'm going to do here is a way that I discovered last year that I really like them, and they actually keep for a while. Speaking of keeping, this mushroom is not a very good one for dehydrating. I've tried dehydrating them in the past. If you find a large portion and want to kind of save some for long-term storage, they just don't do well with dehydrating and rehydrating. But I've been told, I've never tried it, but I've been told that they do well if you saute them, cook them up, and then freeze them. So then they'll keep for a long time in the freezer. So anyway, what I'm doing is, as you can see, just kind of cutting them up into fairly small, chunk-sized pieces. As you're cutting them out, if you find any areas where the bugs have burrowed in and it looks a little brown and mushy, any areas that just kind of look bad, you can just easily trim that part out. In most areas where this mushroom grows, it can kind of vary what time of year it grows. They usually start around May, here in Missouri at least, and that's what it is right now. It's mid-May, but the clip I showed you of the little buds that were starting was actually in mid-April. It was about a month ago. So that's kind of early on the scale, I think, but they can continue through the summer and also into the fall. They just kind of pop up here and there. It's not consistent. If you have a place that you know where they usually grow there year after year at the same spot, but they might fruit only once or twice during the year. But it's just like different places fruit at different times throughout the spring, fall, and summer. If by chance you do want to try to take a spore print of one of these, the spores tend to be white to slightly yellowish, but this really is kind of a foolproof mushroom. Once you learn what they look like, learn the characteristics, make sure there's no gills underneath. The one thing I can think of that could possibly be mistaken in the fall, the jack-o'-lantern mushroom is pretty orange, and they usually grow in clusters at the base of a tree. So at least from a distance they could look a lot like chicken of the woods, but when you get close and look at them, they do have individual stems underneath that they all grow from, and the underneath has true gills, even unlike the chanterelle, which has ridges, gills that will just fold right over when you push them. So if it has gills at all, it is not chicken of the woods. This is also a completely different mushroom than hen of the woods, which many people know. Hen of the woods is named more for its appearance. When you find it in the woods, it kind of has a feathery look. It looks like a hen nestled down at the base of a tree, whereas chicken of the woods is really kind of named for its texture and its culinary qualities. Okay, so here's what we ended up with, that little batch. Okay, I have to do this in stages for what will fit in the pan. Turn that up a little here. So I've got these in some butter, sauteing in some butter. And the thing about chicken of the woods is they will really soak up any liquid that you're cooking them in, whether it's butter or oil. I mean, if you're deep frying them in a deep pan of oil, they won't, but if you're just putting a little olive oil in a pan, then yeah, they will soak it up like crazy and it'll be dry. But I'll start them off in butter just for a little flavor, and they'll soak that up, but I just want to kind of move them around a little bit and cook them up until they start to look a little browned. Okay, they're starting to look good and browned. What I do now is I'm using liquid aminos. This is basically a healthier version of soy sauce. So you can use soy sauce if you like that. I just kind of sprinkle that in on them. And they really soak up that soy sauce and hold that flavor, which I think is wonderful later on. So I'll stir them around. Let them soak that stuff up. We'll show you the finished product. Alright, so here's what they look like when they're done. Very, very tasty. Now, they won't store long term like this. I have done them like this and kept them in the fridge for, well, they'll keep for a couple weeks probably at least, but we had a little bit with our dinner and we'll eat them probably over the next several days, and we won't be keeping them that long. But I suppose you could freeze them at this point and keep them. Like I said, I've heard that works well with this mushroom, so that's an option. So that's chicken of the woods. I encourage you to get out and try it if you find some. Thanks a lot for watching.